Well, hello everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
That's me.
Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show and it's about metaphysics and spirituality. We broadcast on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. And we are also available on all major podcasting platforms. And we live stream from the Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group and my Dr. Leslie Phillips YouTube channel. And you can find all of our past episodes on my website, drlesliephillips.com as well. And I forgot to say that the live broadcast is from CIVL. So if you are new to the show, we talk about metaphysics and spirituality, and every week we have a different topic. And we also do psychic readings live on air. And so our listeners who are able to join us in the live stream get the opportunity to ask us their questions. And we're more than happy to provide information.
Why is the sky blue?
Because there's a lot of water on this planet.
Oh.
And it reflects in the atmosphere. See?
Very
so tonight's episode, I'm not sure, I think we've done something similar once before, but maybe we've not called it this. Synchronicity.
Yes, we did.
Synchronicity. And what is synchronicity? It actually is a term that was first coined by the very well-known psychologist, Carl Jung.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, yeah, it's used in psychology. And his definition of synchronicity was that it is the coincidental occurrence of events, and especially psychic events, that seem related, but are not explained by conventional mechanisms of causality.
That's a mouthful.
Yes. Well, because normally we think in our world of cause and effect, something happens that then causes something else to happen. So what we're saying here is that's not the case. There are these related things that show up in our reality, but one didn't cause the other. And so if we look at the word synchronicity, it's kind of got two halves to it: sync and
Or swim.
actually all three, sync and chronos, or chron, which is derived from chronos. So what do those words mean? So think about the first part, sync. So we talk a lot about being in sync, don't we? And synchronizing. Just think about synchronized swimmers. They're in harmony with one another. They're all making the same movements at the same time. Or fishes swim in sync. So you get a school of fishes and they're all moving the same way at exactly the same time. Or we sync up our devices so that the information in both devices match up. So to be in sync or to synchronize, it means it's kind of like I'm on the same page as you if I'm in sync with you. Or if I'm in sync with something, I'm in alignment with it. We're matching in some way. So synchronous, an event that is synchronous is a corresponding event. Maybe two events occurring, similar events occurring at the same time, and it's a synchronicitous event. And then if we take the other part of the word synchronicity, chron. And that's derived, like I said, from Kronos, who I believe, and I didn't look this up, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Kronos was the god of time in ancient Greece. And so when something is synchronicitous, what we say is it happens in a time sequence that makes these corresponding events seem significant in some way. So for example, if I saw a butterfly today, and the next time I noticed a butterfly was next year, we wouldn't say that there was anything synchronicitous about that whatsoever. But if I woke up this morning and saw a butterfly, and then I said, wow, I dreamed about a butterfly last night, and then I went on a walk and I saw 3 more butterflies, then we might say that that's synchronicity, because I'm seeing all these butterflies and they're having a meaning for me within a time frame that allows for that meaning to be cognized or registered. Some examples in our time that we might also call synchronicities are what I call awakening codes. And it's really common for people these days at this time of mass awakening to see strings of numbers, isn't it? Whether you're seeing 1, 1, 1, 1, or 2, 2, 2, 2, or 3, 3, 3, 3, or any other string of numbers, that is something that is showing up that has meaning for you within your reality. And usually, just like this idea of synchronicitous events, it's telling you something. Either you're in the right place at the right time, or maybe it's validating you. Your energy is aligned with your higher path, and this is reflecting this back at you. Or at the very least, you're being urged to pay attention and orient yourself in a particular direction. Another common example is people who see feathers all the time, for example, as a sign of maybe their guardian angel is communicating with them. So what's happening energetically? What is happening energetically when that's going on? So this is my perspective. If your energy is clear and high, and you're in alignment with your highest and greatest good, then the universe will line up for you and your reality will show up in a synchronicitous way. So in a way, it's the same thing as saying, if you are managing your energy so that your energy is high and clear, then you get to manifest what you need whenever you need it, completely effortlessly. So when you're in sync, you're in alignment, and you're being given feedback from the universe about how in alignment you are, or being prompted to move in the direction of greater alignment. So I'm going to give some examples in a moment that I got from Carl Jung and other people. But one other musing when I was thinking about this idea of synchronicity, back to the idea of chronos and time, we completely live our lives directed by time. We completely live our lives by the clock, but not all cultures on our planet do. And historically, we didn't always do that either. So I don't remember when the calendar we use was introduced. I think it's called the Julian calendar, and maybe in the time of ancient Rome. But we haven't always had the same measurement of time or even measured time. And so some indigenous cultures actually live more by synchronicity and intuition than they do by time. So they show up when it feels in alignment for them to show up. They follow their intuition about what next step to take along their path. So they're not living by the clock at all. And I think it's kind of amazing to imagine what it would be like if you could live your life like that, completely synchronicitously and completely intuitively. You might never need to do anything you didn't want to ever again. I can see Corey smiling, but I
Yeah,
can't
I'm
hear
laughing
him.
at that one. I was on mute. That's cute. I like that.
Yeah.
Just, well, the farmers used to live in a synchronistic style. I mean, if it was they get up at the dawn and they work till dusk, and they didn't need time.
Yeah, that they were working in sync with the cycles of the planet, I would say.
Yeah, in cycles, but
Yeah,
they didn't have time.
they didn't have a clock
No
measuring
clocks.
time, but they still had, the dawn and dusk. So let me see if I can give a couple of examples. Well, here's a couple of simple examples. Let's say you're trying to decide whether to say yes or no to something, and you're struggling with your decision. But let's say you're driving along the highway, and all of a sudden you see a bumper sticker on the car in front of you, and it says, "Just do it." Or you turn at the same time that you're trying to make the decision, you turn the radio on, and it's a song that is in some way giving you the answer to which choice to take. And so usually something that is synchronicitous has a personal meaning for the person who is experiencing the synchronicity. It's different than a coincidence. So, for example, a coincidence might be that you are in the doctor's waiting room and you are reading a magazine, and it's about someone with a particular surname, I don't know, Tom Hanks or something. And then the receptionist comes out and asks for Mr. Hanks. Well, that's a coincidence. There's no internal meaning for you necessarily in that event. So for it to be a synchronicity, it's something like that. It's showing up in your life, but it has meaning for you, very specific meaning for you. And let me see, I was going to read an example of synchronicity to help illustrate it. So I'm just trying to find it on my page, because I had one from Carl Jung in his practice. I'm having trouble finding it, so I'll just try and see if I can remember it. He was treating a lady who was a really, really difficult patient. And she'd been stuck for a really, really long time. And he'd been trying to help her. And lots of his colleagues had been trying to help her, and nobody could. She was stuck. I don't know exactly what the stuckness was to do with, but she was having a consultation with him, and she was telling him about a dream that she had. And in the dream was a scarab beetle, a golden scarab beetle. And at the exact moment that she was telling him about this dream with a scarab beetle, a golden beetle, or as close to, flew in through the window and landed in the office. And it was just shocking to both of them. And that synchronicitous event of her having had the dream, telling her psychologist about the dream, and the same moment a beetle that looked like a scarab landing in the office, actually allowed her to shift her energy and make the breakthrough in her stuckness, out of stuckness, that they had been trying to help her with for a really, really long time. Have you ever experienced synchronicity in your life, Corey?
Yeah.
Can you think of any really cool examples?
You put me on the spot there, Dr. Leslie. No, I really can't.
No. Maybe some of our listeners can. Think about, well, you must have had numbers showing up for you.
Numbers showing up and things like that. But I'm thinking more or less, trying to figure something out with people. I've had a lot of instances where I've needed somebody to do something, like when I'm doing renovations, and I'll look through blah 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 blah, and it's sort of like manifestation in a while. But then I'll talk to somebody and they'll just say, "Hey, listen, I know this plumber. He just moved in across the road." And you go, I've been looking for a plumber. And I find that synchronous.
Yeah.
Tick.
Synchronistic. Well, I'd love to hear whether any of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, a lot of things like that happen. But
yeah.
Well, it's actually, there's nobody has asked any questions yet. But what we're probably going to do is go to a break before we do that anyway.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I think we should open up the rest of the show to our listeners' questions.
Yes, any questions, anything you've got, anything you want to talk about, anything you want to ask Dr. Leslie, if you want a mini reading or something along those lines.
Exactly. So if you stayed on till now, synchronicitously, now you've got the opportunity to have a reading in the next part. But if you said, oh, this is really boring what they're talking about, then you missed out. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey. We're a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And, we've been doing this show for 4.5 years. And we've covered many topics under the sun. There's not much at this point that we haven't talked about in the realm of metaphysics and spirituality. And that's why I would really, really like to put it out there to our listeners. Listeners, write to us, post on the Facebook group, let us know what you'd like us to talk about. What would you really love us to talk about on the show next week and the week after? I'd really like to hear from you.
Well, there was a question a couple of weeks ago by someone, and we never got to it because we had to cut off. And that was about your personal path and journey with psychic abilities, and when did you first start? When did you go back to your first experience where you knew for sure you were psychic, and that's, and then you ended up taking that path?
Well, I have two different answers for that question, actually. One is that when I was always really, really fascinated by dreams. And I used to keep a dream diary. And I trained myself to dictate my dreams while I was asleep. And then I used to listen to the recordings afterwards. And I came to realize through that dream diary and that dream record that I used to keep that there's more to reality than meets the eye. Because in my dream experiences, I had premonitions of world events, actual world events that happened on the world stage. I dreamed about them before they happened. And I dreamed events in my own life before they happened. And I met people in my dreams before I met them in real life. I had experiences of myself and people I knew in past lifetimes in my dreams. And I met with spirit guides in my dreams. So that fascination with my dream life and my dream reality led me to seek out like-minded people who were also interested in dreams. And bearing in mind, I was a scientist at the time. So I joined a dream group, and I got to hang out with other people who were into this stuff, and through them, they introduced me to more people, and I started taking classes in the UK. So over 20 years ago, in the mid 1990s, to learn to be a healer and a clairvoyant. And then that started opening me up to being able to access this information consciously. And so I then went on a journey of between 6 and 8 years where I was taking classes and studying, well, having direct experiences of it under the tuition of different teachers, and which got me to where I am now, able to access that information, not just in the dream state, but completely in the waking state. But if I look back on my life earlier than that time of keeping the dream diary, then I had experiences when I was really little. Like I used to see, when I look at the sky, it's a bit like a crazy Van Gogh painting in that there's lots of these little energy particles all swirling around. And I've not met many other people who see the sky like that. One of my main spiritual teachers said she also saw the sky like that. And at nighttime, the air is like many different particles of colored light. And so I remember asking my mum, when I was probably about 3 years old, whether she saw all the lights at night, and she said no. And so I had experiences when I was very little, which I just learned that nobody else saw it that way. And so I should probably just start seeing reality in the same way that they did. And then I went to school and I got very intellectually programmed. So then my way back out of it was the dream diary. That kept that thread of connection with my higher being and multidimensional self. So, I mean, I think that dreams are a really great way to access your intuition. I think art is as well, because they're both dealing with the language of symbols, and the language of symbols is a way that we communicate as spirit, because symbols are multidimensional, whereas the language we use as humans is linear.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a question again the other week, since nobody's come on board. From Victoria. She said, could you talk about how to clear and protect your home from negative energies or entities, and what to do if you encounter something like that? Is there a prayer or a spell that would help protect me?
So one really great way is to create a column of gold light, like a giant waterfall, that you just bring through the entire area of your home, like you're washing its insides with gold energy. And make that gold column go all the way to the center of the earth, so that all the negative energies are just going to flow down like water flowing down a plug hole in a bathtub. That's the way I use to manage that energy in my home or anywhere else that I go. So I do it energetically. Some people use things like sage and crystals and, set them around the house with the intention that they are doing cleansing. So, and then negative entities, you can also ask healing guides, ask for guides to come and help keep your energy high in your home. And then there are other advanced energy techniques that you can use as well that will eradicate negative dark energies from your home. And then that really means getting a hold of somebody like me who's experienced it doing those kinds of things. So thank you for that question.
Yep. Sounds simple enough, right?
Yeah.
I know that we get a lot of questions from our friends on when they join our Facebook group. And I think a lot of the statements are because we asked the question, why do you want to join? And most of them, I think when you look at, most of them will say something along the lines of, so I'm running out of juice on my headset, to expand their psychic abilities. Could you talk a little bit about expanding psychic abilities?
Yeah. I think the first thing is to make a commitment, to it. A lot of people these days, they want quick results. It's like McDonald's culture, isn't it? It's why you've got all of those apps you can get with a meditation on, a 5-minute meditation. But really, you need to dedicate time and focus and be committed to your spiritual growth and to developing your psychic abilities and also to healing yourself. So just like if we want to build muscle and we don't go to the gym, then we're not going to build muscle. So if you want to develop your psychic abilities, then it's a good idea to set time aside to focus on it. And the method that I recommend and that I teach is through meditation. And so set some time aside to meditate. And that there's two things really about expanding your psychic abilities. One is learning how to consciously access your psychic abilities, but the other is raising your vibration and clearing denser energies out of your space. So those two things go hand in hand. Healing yourself is an important step in being able to expand your psychic abilities. So that's what I would say to that. Do you think that gives a good enough answer, Corey? Because you're on mute.
Well, I'm just looking. Looks like we're getting some comment. I got a comment here from Daniel, but I don't see where he's written it. Oh, here's one from Shannon. She says, my hands are always flowing with energy. I also have a heartbeat pulse that are talking constantly. I'm interested in developing it further to help my, I think we answered that one last week. Can you get out of, it says, okay, I'm interested in developing it further to help my clients and possibly produce books or poetry. Can you get out of the way just by writing? I release, it's hard to.
So it sounds like she's wanting to get out of her own way and access her intuition, and it sounds like she's asking whether writing is a way that she could do that.
Yeah.
And I would say yes. And actually, there's lots of authors who do use writing as a way of connecting with a higher power or their intuition. A good example is Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote Conversations with God. That literally is a conversation with him, and higher guidance that he calls God. So I think, yeah, creative writing is a great way at being able to flow your intuition, and any kind of writing where you're not using your intellect. So I'd say let go of being concerned about the structure of the writing, the grammar, and all of that, and just free flow, allow free ideas to just, and creativity to just free flow through you. Corey, you're on mute again. Oh.
I'm fully aware I'm on mute.
I thought you looked like you were talking to me.
No, I was talking to myself.
Okay. Well, I've finished answering that question. So it would be interesting to see what other questions any of our listeners.
There are no other questions.
Okay. All right. Well, our subject tonight is synchronicity, so it must be telling us something that nobody's asking us questions. That
Synchronicity, yeah.
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 Yeah. So if you are watching live on Facebook or on YouTube, this is your opportunity to get a little bit of free reading. So please feel free to ask your questions.
We know you're out there.
And in the lack of that, I am going to go and find those examples that I had. More examples of synchronicity.
Oh, that'd be great. And you can
So,
send those to me at one point in time too.
I shall. So I was reading an example of this chap, and I think he was a journalist, and he said he was driving home. I think he was a journalist, but he was questioning his career and questioning, whether he should do something else. And he was driving home and he was thinking about this. And he was listening to a song on the radio called Desperado by the Eagles. And then it says, as he pulled up to the curb in front of his house, the last line he heard before he turned the car off was, "Don't you draw the Queen of Diamonds. She'll beat you if she's able. The Queen of Hearts is always your best bet." Then he opened the door to his house and his foot stepped onto a playing card right there in his door, which was the Queen of Hearts. And so he was completely dumbfounded and wondered what it meant. And then he was telling a friend, and his friend said that when you get signs like that, it means you're on the right path. It's like the universe winking at you. And then he said, even more remarkable than that, he went on to find the Queen of Hearts in many places over the next 2 years. And over that next period of 2 years, he continued seeking clarity about his career. And the Queen of Hearts kept showing up in all sorts of locations, like he'd see it on the sidewalk in a city, or a conference room, or a sand dune on the beach, or out on a mountain hike in the middle of nowhere, that these Queen of Hearts playing cards started showing up everywhere. And he came to understand that it was pointing him in the direction of making a shift in his career and becoming an independent writer instead of a journalist. So that's one example of somebody experiencing all of these things that we've been talking about tonight, synchronicities. So you might think about them as little messages, little miracles, little things that make you gasp and go, "Oh, how did that happen?" But make you pay attention to where you are and what you're thinking about at the time that it happens. I think synchronicity is also about, I think I was saying before, when you show up in just the exact right timing to meet the exact right people that you need to meet in order for life to fall into sync for you, for things to come together for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of a couple of examples before we go on the break, and we have a question from Misty. One of the things was when we moved into this house, the tile that was in the kitchen downstairs, the black and white square ones, and the next thing you know, everywhere we went, there were black and white square tiles. Remember that?
Yeah, that's a really good example.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think another good example is when people buy cars, when they buy a new car, they say, "Gee, I never noticed these cars on the road before." And then you buy the car, and next thing you know, they're all over the place.
Totally.
Yeah.
Except for our car.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's time for a break. So let's go to a break and then come back to questions.
Yeah, Yeah, the final part of the show is always listeners' questions. So I look forward to that. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
Hello again.
A weekly talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And we cover everything under the sun, all sorts of episodes about different psychic abilities and so on. And there are close to 300 past episodes that you can find on our website and all the main podcasting platforms. So if you're new to the show, do check out all of our past episodes as well. You could listen to an episode a day for more than a year. There's so many of them.
Yes, you could. And if you go to the free video readings, there's another 350 of those. So you get the second year covered. Yeah, for those people listening, if you ever go to our site, there's a thing called free video readings. These were people sending in questions, and Dr. Leslie would answer it on a video and send it back to them. And it was quite popular. So, just 3 or 4 minute videos, but there's so many questions on there, like FAQs that frequently asked questions, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah, because for the first couple of years of the radio show, we used to put it out there for people to ask, a free question, and we collected all the questions, and we got to over 1,000 of them. And then we said, I wonder what the most common questions are. And the most common questions were, why am I here? What's my life purpose? That was number one. And then number two was some version, and who am I going to spend my life with? So that would be questions about relationships and soulmates and so on. So those were the two top questions. And I'm trying to remember what the third top question was. There was life purpose and career, relationships, and now you want to say money and health are also common questions, but I don't think that was it. It'll come to me.
Career is always a question.
Yeah. Life direction.
Yeah, life direction. It's always a common question. Okay, we have a question from Misty. Misty says, I meditate regularly and totally am open to signs, signals, and so on. How can I make it stronger? I listen to it, act on it, but I want to take the next step. What do you suggest?
Well, let me take a look at your energy, Misty, and see what comes up specific to you. Well, what comes up to say to you is, it sound like a funny word, but increasing your magnetism. And what do I mean by that? It looks like there's almost like this central core within your energy that looks like really bright in alignment, and it's you. And then there's this other energy swirling around, and some of it, and it's in your system, it's in your space, but there's some of it's just chaotic stuff that you've picked up from out there. And I'm seeing that junk, it's like space junk orbiting you. That is impacting the signal that you're broadcasting. And so in order to attract stuff to us, it's based on whatever signal we're putting out. So it looks to me like being more grounded and letting go of things that are not yours from within your energy field. And also at the same time as that, being aware of your heart center and being really aware of what you're asking for and your your desires, and letting yourself really feel that sense of passion and affinity within your heart. I'm seeing that that sets up a kind of recipe to magnetize things towards you. So that's what's coming up to say to you. I hope that helps. Well, I hope that we have some other questions from other listeners.
Yes, we do. Misty has another question. She says, also, would you do a blueprint on a Sunday?
Misty, yes, if you write to me, I can set something up for you, sure.
I knew the answer to that.
Sure.
Sure.
Just
and so this is
email
from
me.
Mia. And Mia says, my two siblings had synchronized dreams in December 2nd, 2017. Both of them were living in different countries in a different time zone. They both had dream about our youngest brother who was hugged by our dad who already passed away. Everything they both described were the same, as if they both were in each other's dream. The scenario there were people in our home country crying about our brother. Later in November 2018, our youngest brother died from a tragic motorbike accident. My question is if this kind of dream appears a warning, could it be prevented if they had paid attention to it? Can you actually, oh no, that's another question. So that was the question. Can it be prevented?
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. That's another really great example. And I know from my own personal experience, when I was in the dream group I was talking about earlier, we would often, members of that group, have synchronicitous dreams or meet each other in our dreams and both have memories of meeting each other in our dreams. So I think that that's happens to people who are close with each other. So you can't prevent somebody's death. Somebody's death is as unique to them as their birth, and it is a kind of an agreement between them and God. So on the one hand, well, let me see what I'm saying here. That person themselves can renegotiate their time of death with God directly, though. So, I mean, I guess if people had appreciated the meaning of the dream and spoken to the brother concerned, and the brother concerned had said, oh, I believe that this is speaking of my death in the future, and then decided himself, I really don't want that to happen, then I guess it's possible. But I don't want to give the impression that any of us is responsible in any way for anything that we see intuitively, because we're not. I mean, if you saw an accident happening across the street in your waking life, just because you saw it, you wouldn't feel responsible for it. So everybody creates their own reality, and what they create in their own reality, including when they're born and when they die, is really their creation. And so I would say it's difficult, because mostly when we have a dream that's a premonition, we don't always know exactly what it means until the event happens. And then we say, oh, that's what that dream was all about. So for example, I dreamed of an airline crash, an airplane crashing into a high-rise building 3 days before it happened. And it wasn't 9/11, it was something years before that happened in Holland. Well, before I saw that on the news, I would never have known that my dream 3 days ago was a premonition of that event. I only knew it when it actually happened. So I think it's really, really hard, because sometimes I've had other dreams of airlines crashing where no event happened on Earth that I know of, for example. So I know I'm not giving you a straight answer to that. I think the answer is, on the whole, it's not our responsibility to change someone else's reality, that that person is fully responsible for their own reality. And we don't always know the meaning of dreams like that until after the event. I am sorry to hear about what happened to your brother as well. But I do also tend to think that when somebody passes away, it's because it is their time. Nobody ever passes away without them being in agreement with it. I hope that helps.
I'm sure it will. I have a question about that actually, and I'm not sure if you answered it at the beginning of the question or not, but the answer. When two people in different places have the exact same dream, like the two siblings, how does that happen? Is that just an example of synchronicity, or
It
is there
is.
something more to it?
Well, it's an example of synchronicity. I'd also say that when you are asleep, you transcend time and space. So when you're in the body, you've got the sibling on this side of the world and the sibling on that side of the world, right? But when they're asleep, there's no time and space in that dream experience in the astral plane. And so it's possible for them to sync up in terms of their experience on the astral plane. So you could be in a dream scenario with somebody that you know and both remember the dream. You could witness something happening in a dream event, and both of you be a witness to that same event, and so on. And I think also for people who are close, like families, there's a certain degree of telepathic connection and communication.
Okay, one more question here. Where are my questions? Here they are. This is my question. So, can you actually create synchronicity, or is it completely, totally random? Is there something you can do to open yourself up to it more?
Yeah, well, it isn't random. It's not random at all. It's based on, I think that the clearer your energy field, the higher your vibration, the clearer your energy field, the more your energy field matches what you are wanting to create in your life, then you become, and the more you surrender to the flow of the universe, then you allow the universe to position you the right time and the right place for what you are asking for. So raise your vibration, and that would be the, and be the energy of what you're wanting to create, basically. So similar answer to if you were asking me how to manifest. So listeners, you're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth, and we're talking about synchronicity tonight, but we are also open to you asking your questions.
Yes, lots of questions. We don't have a lot of time. Let's have 4 minutes left. But Mia said, "Oh, I see. Thank you for the insight. Thank you for the follow-up question too. I'm learning so much. She's learning a lot. Well, that's great.
Good, that's great.
That's great. That's absolutely wonderful. Yeah. I don't think I have any more questions on that are flowing
But
through my mind.
you can ask a question on anything.
I can?
Doesn't have to be on what the show topic was.
Oh, I see. Hello, this is from Amy, and hello, enjoying the show. I used to dream a lot and remember my dreams. That no longer happens. I've asked for it, but it hasn't happened. Any insights? I
So
bet
you,
you she does.
yeah, you obviously you are dreaming, and it has to do, like you say, with the degree to which you're remembering your dreams. And I think sometimes that has to do just with the content of life. And so if your life is full of another focus, you might not have the bandwidth to be consciously um, remembering your dreams. And it may just be that things that are happening in your dreams are kind of just naturally integrating into your waking consciousness as well, without you necessarily consciously remembering it. So I think that it partly has to do with energy distribution and where your energy is focused. But I think that if you put time aside and said, I really want to remember my dreams, and you meditated on that before you went to sleep and set the intention that you would remember your dreams, you might be able to consciously turn that around so that you do start incubating dreams that and remembering them in the morning.
Yeah, very much. I just wanted to make one more comment on Mia's thing about the two dreams and the dreams of death. Edgar Casey said that a prophet giving a prophetic message is only a warning of what could happen, not necessarily what will happen. That you have the power to change your direction. And you were saying you were saying that earlier as well, that like only if the person agrees that the person that it's happening to can agree to change their time of um, agreed time of death. But remember, if anybody wants to tell you your future, don't do it, because they are molding you to that future. You have the choice. You don't have to. You don't. If they say you're going to win $1 million, well, that's great. Take it and take it as is. But if they say something's going to happen to you, don't take it for verbal fact. You have the power to change your reality. So just wanted to add that for anybody who's listening. And by the way, Dr. Leslie, that's just about it. You have enough time to say goodbye, and then we can go bye-byes.
Well, goodbye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth. Listeners, we are broadcasting live every week on Tuesdays from 7 to 8 Pacific time. And we would love you to send in your requests for show topics, or even people you'd like us to interview on the show. Maybe we'll do some more interviews this year.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.
Okay. See you next Tuesday. Same time, same place. Bye-bye now. Oops. Oh, there was an issue.